Brace for Impact.
Welcome to another episode of Brace for Impact, covering all things Impact Wrestling, live from No South Studios. I'm the Ace of Tavern, Eastfield Retro, and joined as always on this great Thursday night, but at Mullet.Mania, Colton Jesse. What's up, Kentucky Waterfall, my man?
What's going on, brother? Man, just enjoying the road to Bound for Glory, baby. We're almost there. Just a couple more weeks.
Hell yeah, and we're getting a lot of build to it. We got more matches announced tonight, and it looks like there's going to be a stacked card in Chicago. We might have Colton Jesse himself enjoying the card, and we're even getting some announcements for the Fallout tapings, which should be a lot of fun, which we'll talk about in the news.
Yeah, man, this as if we needed more dream matches. We got another big one announced for the Fallout. It's really good job on Impact for doing everything they can. You know, it's always hard to get people to both shows. I feel like to get people in for the Saturday and the Sunday. But man, with one of the matches they announced today, I don't see how you could miss Sunday if you in any way have the availability to be there.
Yeah, and if you were on the fence about checking this card out, as the card shapes out, the title matches and all the big feuds been going into it, there's been a lot of build, but also, as you mentioned, the Fallout tapings are going to have some very monumental things happening. And I mean, goddamn, Impact Wrestling has been doing things under the radar, and they're getting more buzz. And then we'll talk about some of the things that are happening in the news where we're seeing an increase in ratings. There's some buzz, and they're riding that groundswell of wrestling popularity through AEW, WWE, and they're that constant right now, right in the middle, doing things the way they've always done them, but telling stories that, in a lot of ways, are the best things going in wrestling. I think the more people turn on to Impact, whether it be a casual fan that happens to turn it on or stumble upon it on social media, the more impressed they'll be, because I'm very, very confident that anyone that watches this product couldn't help but find something on the card to enjoy.
Yeah, there's something there for everybody, man. That's the best thing about Impact is you've got a little bit of everything. It's a nice buffet. And if you're a wrestling fan of any sort, you're going to find something you like on a week-to-week basis with this show.
So with that being said, let's get to the insight and talk about the news of the week in Impact Wrestling.
1, 2, 3, 4. Insight.
All right, here we're on the Insight segment talking about the news in Impact Wrestling, and let's talk about the match we were referring to before, and it has been announced that on the Impact Wrestling Bound for Glory Fallout show, we're going to be having Will Ospreay versus Josh Alexander, scheduled for October 22nd, which is the TV tapings from Chicago, so we're going to get the fallout of that. So the other interesting wrinkle in this, Colton, is that Alexander will challenge for the title, obviously in the main event of Bound for Glory. If he is champion going into it, maybe some people are saying he's the favorite, the uncrowned champion, the guy who never lost it, 335 days reign as Impact World Champion, longest ever. He'll be defending that title against the Billy Goat himself. So what do you think about this match, and will it be enough to draw you to stay that extra day in Chicago?
Gosh, man. I got two major thoughts here. One, Will Ospreay is such a workhorse, man. I mean, we know that this guy, he's in his prime. He's all about making towns. I mean, hell, he wrestled in Indy like the day before All In. How cool. Like, he's already coming in and wrestling Speedball Mike Bailey on the show on the 21st at Bound for Glory. And then he's going to come around and give us, and I feel like a match of equal, like marquee draw and caliber going up against Josh Alexander. Like, that's huge, man. Like that's so props to Will Ospreay for signing up to do both. That's a lot to do in one weekend, man. Those are going to be two bangers back to back. And also, I mean, if Alexander is going to be successful in getting the title back here, that is one hell of a first defense, man. Because I mean, let's be real. Peek behind the curtain here. There's no way Josh Alexander is winning it and then losing it the next night. So
right.
It's a hell of a notch on your belt to say that you went up against Will Ospreay, debatably the best wrestler alive right now, and you were able to retain your title. That's a really, really nice notch in Alexander's belt going forward. I mean, man, if I might have to move some things around and get the day off on Monday because it'd be hard to miss, man. I mean, I imagine I looked today just before the show went off the air, and general admission tickets are still available for Bound for Glory. So I imagine people are going to be hanging from the rafters literally at this show. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, so you referenced before Ospreay's going to be taking on Mike Bailey. And for this match with Alexander and Ospreay, the thing about it, it doesn't need the championship. And I think there's creative ways to do it, whether the championship's on the line or not, depending on the booking here. And it's not guaranteed. I said before that I believe Alexander is the favorite, and that might change going forward. We have a few weeks before Bound for Glory. And of course, we'll do our predictions right here on Brace for Impact and talk about it the week before. But whether the title's on the line or not, I think it's one of those matches in wrestling where even though the ending or the whatever the finish is going to be predictable, we don't think Will Ospreay is going to be the Impact World Heavyweight Champion, nor should he be. It's not his place to be, but I think the dream match between Josh Alexander and Will Ospreay has enough to get people in the door and look forward to it on TV. Maybe we'll drive ratings on Access, get people to subscribe on YouTube. But I'm also very much looking forward to the Will Ospreay match against Mike Bailey. So back-to-back nights, Billy Goat's going to be in town in Chicago, and Cicero Stadium has been their home away from home in Chicago, and they're not running the big arenas. The Cicero Stadium has, we saw the Fallout tapings happen throughout the summer. They've been sort of bouncing around the same cities. So Chicago, they go obviously Toronto. They do these things here. I mean, Memphis was a one-off that they haven't been back in a while, but it's cool to see them going back to Chicago. And we talked about it when it first happened, building towards all the big events they had throughout, the early summer and late summer. Chicago is a hotbed of wrestling. We know how much they love it, but AEW felt like they had a stranglehold of it, but they found their little comfort zone here with Cicero Stadium, where even though everyone has their market and WWE and AEW run the big arenas, Cicero Stadium is this nice little pocket of wrestling where it creates a really cool atmosphere that I'm very, very confident that Bound for Glory is going to have. Oh,
absolutely, man. I mean, it's a pro wrestling town through and through, and I know they're going to pack this show out for Bound for Glory. I feel like even without the announcement of Ospreay versus Alexander on the Fallout on the following night, that it would be a good turnout, especially compared to what we've seen in some other towns for the taping the night after the big show. But I mean, with that announcement, man, I don't see how you're going to have anybody who's in the door Saturday not coming back Sunday.
Absolutely. And we have the Bound for Glory card in front of us, and we'll talk about the matches that were announced on the tapings, but we'll stick to the ones that were announced prior going in. Of course, you have Alex Shelley defending his Impact World title against Josh Alexander. We have the Knockouts World Champion Trinity defending her title against Mickie James. Two similar stories. We referenced it last week where the both challengers did not lose their championship. So this is interesting going forward. Are both of the uncrowned champions going to get their title back? Will one or the other? Maybe they both won't. That's the interesting wrinkle to the story. And then we also have the X Division champion Chris Sabin taking on Kenta. Seems like he's defending the title against Kenta. It has not been made official that it's for the X Division title, but we can assume it will be. As we referenced before, Will Ospreay versus Mike Bailey. We get this call your shot gauntlet match, which we'll talk about the rules here. We're going to decide, it was interesting how they booked this here, where we obviously had the 5-on-5 tag match that created this whole crazy dynamic of potentially the winning team and losing team decides the first and last entrant. And then we're going to get the Mike Tenay, Don West, and Tracy Brooks being inducted into the Impact Wrestling Hall of Fame. We also got Knockouts tag title matches. We got a digital media championship match. Man, Colton, this is going to be a stack card October 21st.
Yeah, man, this is not going to be one to miss. If you can't make your way to Chicago for this show, make sure that you're getting this on pay-per-view because, man, this is going to be, Bound for Glory is their biggest show of the year, and they're really bringing it.
So let's give a shout out to Tyson here in the chat. Thanks for watching, Tyson. We also have Miss B. What's going on, Mrs. B? Hey, Cicero Stadium and many other venues are the hubs for the Impact teams, and wrestling in a bowling alley in Chicago would draw a crowd. Hell yeah, I'd be all about that. And thank you for watching, Mrs. B. We always appreciate the sport. So here we are with Impact Wrestling announcing their celebration of Lucha Libre, Colton. So this is also the night after Bound for Glory. So if Will Ospreay versus Josh Alexander wasn't enough, they revealed that at Chicago Cicero Stadium, they're going to honor the tradition and legacy of the high-flying style of professional wrestling that originated in Mexico. We're going to have Conan on hand, Juventud Guerrera, and we're going to also have Samurai del Sol, Laredo Kid, Black Taurus. And it was just referenced before that we're going to have the debut of former MLW champion Myron Reed. He's going to be involved in a match on both sides. So it's going to be the Rascals, Trey Miguel, Zachary Wentz, and Myron Reed taking on Black Taurus, Laredo Kid, and Juventud Guerrera. So this is going to be 2 hours before the event happens, Colton, and they're going to be giving out tacos. They're going to be giving out lucha fiesta bags, whatever they're calling it. And it's going to be a celebration outside of Chicago Cicero Stadium. And this is going to be a fun thing for Impact. People have meet and greets. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Dude, this is going to be incredible. Like, you didn't need any more star power on this card to get people in the door, but with Conan, Juventud Guerrero, Samurai del Sol, Laredo Kid, Black Truce, I mean, damn, man, you just really, they are pulling out all the stops for these 2 nights.
So we also have the news about the Impact management team talking about how happy they are with the upward trend of viewership and the demo ratings. And really, the promotion living on Access TV is something that leaves a lot to be desired. There obviously has a lot less exposure than being on a national network like TBS, TNT, USA, Fox. But according to PW Insider, management feels that the creative and talent are clicking with fans, as their quote has been growth in viewers over the last few months. It's noted that the Impact could never pull in the same numbers as WWE or AEW due to Access being in way fewer homes, but they are happy with the upward trend. So with the build towards Bound for Glory, we have some numbers here where the numbers in for the September 28th episode of Impact on Access. According to Showbuzz Daily, the episode drew 126,000 viewers overnight, up from last week's 106,000, which is an increase. They're increasing the demo as well. And I know it's a small increase, Colton, but this has to be something that is an upward trend. And if you had this product on a larger TV scale, I feel like it could draw.
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, growth is growth. I mean, it's a small increase, but it's something to be proud of. And I think that they'll continue to see it grow. I think that we're going to continue trending in this direction. And, I know that the Writers Guild strike has cleaned up, but I think the SAG-AFTRA stuff is still kind of in the wings there. So we're kind of hurting for content right now, man, for a lot of networks. So who knows? This might be a time. I'm not sure what the details are of the Impact Access deal. If there's some sort of calendar time frame to it where they've signed, all right, we're going to be on Access for this long. But with growing numbers and with people kind of hungry for content in general these days, we might be heading towards a bigger platform or a bigger network. That might be on the horizon for Impact. I think it could be a reality sooner rather than later.
I think you're right, too. And I think with the leverage being built on AEW and WWE side, we watch millions upon millions of dollars being tossed around for both of those promotions. I think if you are a smaller TV network, maybe an upstart looking to dip your feet into a professional wrestling landscape, Impact Wrestling is the perfect place to start. And I think you can get a very big discount on it with a lot of the bang for your buck, and the talent that's there could really be affordable for a lot of these TV networks that are not willing to go all in, pun completely attended for AEW. But, we're watching WBD, we're watching Fox, we're watching USA, NBC Universal, all these guys sit there and throw so much money at both wrestling promotions. It's hard to imagine that, one of these guys that lose out, maybe there's someone waiting in the wings to offer Impact, a better deal. And sometimes notoriety and eyes are the leverage, all you need. And I think Access right now is not giving it to them. The fact it's not available in homes and you have to seek it out. That's one thing that they're not getting here is those eyes. And I think wrestling fans are savvy and they're smart. If they want to find something, they will. But in order to get that casual audience fan that bridges the gap to even 500,000, even with 500,000, something like that, that's pie in the sky stuff for Impact Wrestling at this point, as they draw 160,000 a night. That type of number should be the goal here. And it's just, I wonder what the ceiling is for Access. Like if they're drawing 126,000 people for an episode of Impact on Access, what's the potential viewership? What is something that could be best case scenario? Because obviously you're limiting yourself being on that platform.
Absolutely. And I'd love to see this breakdown of the numbers between viewership via Access TV and then viewership via the YouTube, VIP subscription, where everybody, how we're watching it, where we're watching a half hour behind on a delay on YouTube. Because I know those numbers are being pulled in. I'd be interested to see the split there and see if it, they do better reaching, if their demographic for the most part is, very open and very savvy with a streaming type of service. I mean, you look at Amazon Prime and the fact that they're exclusively showing Thursday night football games this year. I mean, could you imagine Impact Wrestling on being sourced on Amazon Prime? I mean, maybe not exclusively. I mean, it would for Amazon to sign the deal, it would have to be exclusive. But I mean, that would be huge, man. You would get, I mean, the amount of eyes you could get with that kind of exposure, I think would be amazing. And they're really they're grabbing at all sorts of different content right now. You know, Amazon has been in the streaming game for a while, but I mean, they're definitely nowhere near your Warner Brother Discoveries or anything like that. They're still kind of trying to find their footing, I think. And man, I would love if Impact were able to find a home there.
Yeah, and I think also too, going back to watching the negotiations of WWE and AEW and watching them fine tune. Of course, we're seeing SmackDown is leaving Fox and going over to USA. Raw is going to be up in the coming months, and AEW, that's been a constant conversation. I think a beneficiary of this, not even knowing it, could be Impact Wrestling if they make the right move to potentially, and we'll talk about the next news story here, which has always been on the surface with CM Punk on the surface, where if you could find a way to attract the casual eyes and get people to want to watch and attract them in the right moment, perfect storm type of stuff that, you know, listen, I mean, we watch the XFL, USFL get chances on major networks just because they are football. If wrestling is being looked at as a, monetary gain for these TV networks, as a live sporting network that is consistent programming, it's attractive, So I'm not saying we're sitting here like Impact Wrestling is going to be on Fox tomorrow, but I'm thinking that there has to be a lesser known TV network that wants to get their feet wet into this platform of live sports. And Impact is a way to kind of meet both masters, not take too much of a risk and throw too much money at it, but Impact could benefit from it as well. And I think wrestling is on that upward surge right now where it's attractive. It's not the level of football where, people will take the chance on a second or third promotion, but goddamn, wrestling is at that level where something has to keep cable networks going and get people not to cut the cord.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about that story I was talking about here. Impact superstar, former world champion, Josh Alexander. He was speaking with What Culture for a longer in-depth interview just about his career. He talked about a whole bunch of things here leading up to Bound for Glory, coming back from the injury. But of course, this made the news cycle because he was asked about one CM Punk potentially joining Impact Wrestling. And there's nothing to this rumor. It's just conversation. And I think that's been a lot of the rumor and innuendo that's been buzzing around this is he's burned bridges in both places. The third tiered wrestling promotion is Impact Wrestling. Would they be willing to take the shot? So any interview that any of these Impact talent do, they're going to be asked about it. So of course, Josh Alexander was asked, and everything that Josh Alexander said here was PR 101. This guy didn't stray on either side. He pretty much just kept it straight and narrow. He said, CM Punk, yeah, absolutely. I don't think you can question the guy's star power, his ability to get eyes on a product or a company. I saw Bully Ray recently say the exact same thing. You can say whatever you want about him, but I wasn't in those locker rooms seeing what happened or transpired or the drama or of anything that unfortunately occurred since his return. He continues, but I know who I am as a professional and an individual in this company, and I think I would work cohesively with a guy like CM Punk. Of course, we're both Bret Hart fans, so that might help, but I would love the opportunity to get in the ring, have a program with him in Impact Wrestling or anywhere else. All right, Colton, thoughts on this? Josh Alexander, is this just sort of lip service, or is there something to this? I mean, he is a locker room leader here. You think he has any sway in getting Impact to pull the trigger if possible?
I mean, I think his endorsement definitely helps, and I think Impact would be silly not to take the shot. I mean, it's because at this point, say he comes in and it doesn't work out, cool, give him the boot, see you later, man. But I mean, Impact has also historically been a place where people who have issues in other promotions or other locker rooms can land and sometimes do well. I mean, a person that to mind in recent memory with this situation is Leo Rush. Leo kind of had a reputation for being difficult to work with and kind of bouncing around other promotions, and he seems to be doing really well here in Impact. So, I mean, yes, it's a liability. I don't think this is lip service, though, from Josh Alexander, man. He doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. I think that if he didn't want him here, I don't think he'd necessarily bury him in an interview, but he, wouldn't have as many words to put out there about it, I think. And yeah, I mean, I think I mean, why not? Impact has being the number 3 and being a smaller promotion. In a way, you have a lot less to lose than like an WWE would taking him back at this point. You know what I mean? Or AEW. You know, Impact's not going to have to give him his own show to bring him in. You know, like AEW did to bring him back. There's a lot less of a risk, and I mean, I think that's a resounding response from a locker room leader in Josh Alexander. And like you mentioned, you know, we've heard Bully Ray saying that he would like to have him there. I mean, I can't, especially, I mean, I know it's been controversial and it's somebody that we've spent a lot of time talking about and we're all kind of tired of talking about it to an extent. I mean, as an Impact fan, I could take it or leave it, but I would be excited about the possibility for sure.
I see what you're saying 100%, but my thing, and I compare it to the rebuilding phase of a sporting franchise, whether it be baseball, basketball, football, whatever your favorite is. My thing is, if he was to come in and be an asset and be a team player and do everything we want him to do, great. It brings eyes to the product. He can help everybody. It could be dream matches and bring the casual fan over, all that. My fear would be, you know, you mentioned he wouldn't get his own show. He would predominantly take over Impact's programming, and rightfully so. Who would be the biggest star in the product. My fear would be that they would wipe, you know, the Etch-a-Sketch clean and get rid of all their plans in lieu of this short-term solution and set them back, because what I think they're fostering here in Impact Wrestling has been special. And I think the locker room, and I'm not saying that he would come in and torch the whole thing. I don't think, because there's a lot of different aspects of what happened in AEW, even what happened in WWE. It's not just this one thing that he comes in and scorch earth mentality. But what I will say is that the roster that's being constructed from top to bottom, we are heaping praise on it week after week, just watching the depth be created, these homegrown stars mixed with the veterans. My fear would be that a lot of that stuff will be for naught. And in that vacuum of power that comes with booking, and of course, he would be a guy that deserves to be at the top of the card, who's falling out of that spot? And I know that, speaking from a diehard fan watching week to week, that's someone who obviously, listen, I mean, he's going to draw the most eyes on the product, so it makes sense financially if the contract makes sense. But for me, watching as a fan, I love the roster as is without him on the roster. So selfishly, myself, I wouldn't want him there just because of just what we're seeing manifest here from week after week, month after month. I think everything Impact's doing doesn't need that, but I understand why they would take the risk, because as you mentioned, it is that, you know, that home run swing that is something that could take you to the next level. And, you know, almost like Candyland, you spin the colors and you jump all the way ahead. It's hard to resist that. But, you know, just like you've landed in Peppermint Alley, whatever it is, sometimes you can land into like the Fudge Dudge thing, whatever it is, and get stuck in the mud. So it's very possible. So I don't know. It's an interesting conversation, but I think a lot of what they have to, I just appreciate Josh Alexander being direct, which was cool, because in a lot of ways he could just give a very corporate answer and not be honest. It seems like this is very honest of him. He referenced even the drama in the back. He didn't even have to say that. So that was pretty cool of him to say. And, you know, I'm interested to listen to the rest of the interview and check out what Culture was able to get out of him.
Yeah, same here, man. And I you know, not to spend too much time on it, but I completely understand your concern, and I agree with you. I would, when I think of him coming, the possibility of him coming in, I would think that I would hope at least that the Impact brass would be a little bit more guarded about what they're doing, because this is, you know, it's a little bit different than when he came back to AEW. You know, he is bringing all this baggage with him. I mean, like we talk about it every week, the top of the card is pretty heavy right now. It's pretty full. We got a lot of great talent in line to be the next big thing and the next big storyline. And I would hate to see all that scrapped just to have CM Punk come in. And, you know, we had talked about this on the debate a couple of weeks ago, where, you know, we were talking about all the cuts from WWE since the TKO merger and, you know, who should go where. And somebody had mentioned CM Punk coming to Impact, and Chad had said, yeah, I don't know if they'll be able to afford him. And I'm like, brother, nobody else is giving him offers right now. Like, at this point, Impact, if he wants to be on TV, the way I see it, Impact would be doing CM Punk a favor, not the other way around. Yeah. And I think that mentality, I would hope that the Impact brass would have that mentality going in and being like, Yeah, we're happy to have you here, Billy. We're not rolling out the red carpet and scrapping everything we got planned for the next 6 months. We're going to see where you fit in, which is exactly the way I would like to see it go. But I also understand that he's got a lot of star power, and I know he's not negotiating his own contract solely by himself. I'm sure he's got people working for him that would make sure that he gets what he wants to be able to come on board. But I don't know. I could be really interesting to see, man. I mean, if they could bring him in and kind of, I mean, essentially take him down a peg while bringing him in the door, I think it could be beneficial for Impact and also maybe beneficial for Mr. Phil Brooks to be humbled a little bit coming in.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this can be compared to a troubled athlete or someone that's looking to rehabilitate their image in the public by taking a 1-year deal and being a model citizen, having a career year. You think of baseball players that kind of had it out with whoever they were out, and free agency didn't go well for them. There's something valuable about maybe going back for a year, looking like a model citizen, bringing some positive attention to the name. If you go out there and you wrestle Josh Alexander for the world title, and you're having these amazing matches and people are seeing the clips on YouTube or Instagram or wherever, people are talking about you in the ring. And I think, something has to be said about that, where you're getting the platform, be it a third platform. It's not the many eyes on it, but he will help bring some of those eyes over. And he has a platform to rehabilitate a damaged image, whether it's rightfully so or not. He has a damaged image. And I think of guys and athletes in the past that have had to go elsewhere and go change the way people view them. And if Impact was willing to do that, as you mentioned, that has more than anything financial that could give him. I think that platform is so valuable because not everyone's going to take the risk. And there's only a limited amount of North American wrestling companies with the reach. WWE, AEW, Impact is right there. I mean, he could take the risk and go to NWA, MLW, those types of places. But chances are, if he wants a chance back in wrestling, it has to be here in Impact Wrestling, or potentially, WWE, which might be Chicago Survivor Series. But I don't know, man. This has a lot more meat on it. This has a lot more meat on it than the Nick Khan stuff. Like Nick Khan was just like, we wish him well. Like, he's awesome. Wish him well. I think that's going to be awesome, whatever he winds up doing. This feels like, oh, wow, this is a talent that sees the value of having a guy like him in the locker room. Did I lose you, Colton? All right. Looks like I lost Colton for a second. We're going to go blow by blow here, and I'm going to go to what happened on Impact. Let's get to blow by blow.
Blow by blow.
All right, here we are going blow by blow. Let's start with Tasha Steelz taking on Killer Kelly, and this is how they open the show here. As of this point, neither woman had a match at Bound for Glory coming up October 21st. Kelly's one half of the Knockouts Tag Team Championship champions with Masha Slamovich. She's at ringside as well. And this match also marked the first match for Steelz in a singles action since March, while Kelly last wrestled singles back in July during the Australian tour. So this is a big get for both these women. Open the card. Emphasis on women's wrestling, which is awesome to see. We saw Tasha Steelz in control most of this match. I mean, she, Masha Slamovich getting involved at ringside. But the main story here was essentially setting up the stage for this Knockouts Tag Team Championship at Bound for Glory, because eventually Deonna Purrazzo comes to ringside. She gets involved, and she pulls the referee out of the ring, who thought it was Slamovich. Due to the distraction, Steelz hit the blackout, which we know is the crucifix bomb for the pin and the win. Tasha Steelz hugs Purrazzo after the match, and now it seems like they are setting the stage for MK Ultra to have a number one contender nipping at their toes. And here we are. And I think putting emphasis on the tag division, this has a couple more weeks to build. We're sitting here October 5th. We have it, like I said, 2-3 more weeks of build for this tag division. It could be very, very special. So really good opening match. I was very impressed with what they were able to do. Seeing Tasha Steelz back in action here, as I mentioned, it's been limited action for both of them as far as singles competition, but right to the action was awesome to see. But we had a segment in the back. We knew this was coming. John Schuyler of the Good Hands, of course, Jason Hotch's partner is on paternity leave. So congrats to him and his family. But he had a tag match to worry about, and we had to figure out who's going to be his partner. So he walked into Giselle Shaw's entourage locker room having a discussion. He asked Savannah Evans to be his mystery partner for tonight's tag team match. Jay Vidal got involved, and he, made a joke at John Skyler, and Shaw didn't care for. And given that everything that's going on with Jay Vidal costing his team some matches, she said that he would join Skyler tonight instead of, obviously Skyler's like, no, I'd rather have Savannah Evans. I'd rather have somebody else. Jay Vidal's been a liability on your team, but looks like we're going to get Jay Vidal. And that becomes the story here because he needed a good partner, because this fan revenge strap match certainly left a lot to be desired for those guys. And it was a tough situation for the heels here. We also went straight into a segment here with Gia Miller. She's with John Gresham, and she's talking about the recent win over Mike Bailey by cheating, and pretty much said what we said last week, that isn't that everything you stand against? Isn't that everything you're supposed to be completely ridding in Impact Wrestling? You're upset that the X Division didn't have any loyalty. You are a former Ring of Honor world champion. You want this to have some integrity, and now you're cheating. He defended his actions, saying that everyone is breaking rules, so why not him? And he went with the Barry Bonds approach, where everyone's taking steroids and I'm the best player there is, so why don't I take steroids? But we know how that worked out for Barry Bonds. Let's see how it works out for Jonathan Gresham. But before that happened, Mike Bailey walks up. He was angry. Obviously, he got cheated out of a win last week, and John Gresham just walked away, didn't even warrant giving him any words. The thing I was going to say, and hopefully Colton gets back here soon because I'm interested in hearing what he has to say about this as well, is Mike Bailey has a big match coming up, taking on Will Ospreay at Bound for Glory in Chicago. Big match. But the undertones of this feud with John Gresham, there's something to be said about this feud that's been brewing here, and maybe they pay it off on the Impact tapings coming up. Maybe they find a way to put it on ice and then reheat it when it's time. But there's something here with John Gresham and Speedball Mike Bailey, and I think we're eventually going to see the two of these guys have a meaningful program down the line. And, we saw them tag in these other matches. There's a lot to be said about what goes on with the two of them. So I'm interested to see exactly where this goes. As we bring Colton back in here at Mania. What's up, dude?
What's up, man? Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened to my connection, but it went down hard.
Yeah, it was a little bit laggy for a little bit here going. So it looks much better right now. But we were just talking about the intro match where we had setting the stage. Tasha Steelz defeated Killer Kelly, which is setting the stage for this Knockouts tag team title match happening at Bound for Glory. Clearly, Deonna Purrazzo and Tasha Steelz versus MK Ultra. And then we were also talking about this John Gresham promo. Just give me your thoughts on this Knockouts tag team title match coming up at Bound for Glory.
I'm excited to see it, man. It's going to be, I love MK Ultra. It's going to be, I'm glad to see them on the card because before this, we weren't sure. We had not announced whether or not we were going to have a tag match on the card. So good to see them getting on there. And good to see Tasha Steelz back in action tonight, man. This match was a little slow start, but I thought it finished up really, really strong.
Yeah, I agree. I said the same thing, seeing them both featured here. And like I said before, this was Steel's first singles match since March, and Kelly last wrestled in singles back in July. So we don't really see them go one-on-one with anybody during these Impact tapings. And I was also talking about this John Gresham promo, and this kind of led right into what we were talking about with John Gresham doing things without honor. And then also, too, as I was saying before, Mike Bailey's feuding with Will Ospreay, not feuding with him. He's going to be wrestling him on the biggest event of the year. But there's an undertone of this John Gresham feud. So your thoughts on what's going on with John Gresham and Speedball Mike Bailey? Is this going to be put on ice and reheated once Will Ospreay is no longer at Impact consistently?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I like the mystique of it that we saw tonight too, because Gresham was being a little cryptic with Gia Miller backstage, and then as soon as Speedball comes up, he just kind of clammed up and didn't say anything and just kind of walked away. So yeah, I think there's a lot of meat on the bone left here with the story between Speedball and Gresham. I'm also wondering, and I mean, it would be pretty dastardly, but I wonder if we see some sort of interference from Gresham in his match with Will Ospreay at Bound for Glory. So, I mean, you want to talk about heating that story back up really quick, man, I'd be putting it on broil.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of, they were tagging together. It didn't go well for them in the tag team tournament. They were trying to get the titles, and there's a lot here. And I think it's untapped potential between two of the best workers on the whole roster. Anytime they link up, they've wrestled countless times, but it feels like there's something bigger brewing between them. And I'm not sure what, and maybe it's not intentional. I just feel like there's something there for this bigger feud.
Yeah, I do too. And I'm excited to see it bring a little bit more personality out of both guys.
And John Gresham looks like $1 million, dude. He's popping out of that shirt. And Speedball, one of the best workers in all wrestling, and seeing him get highlighted in Impact Wrestling, finding a home there. I know he was bouncing around different places, and he seems to be like found a consistent home here. Of course, he still works other places. We see him at GCW events, but he fits on this Impact roster, and I would like to see him featured a lot more. And this John Gresham feud's a good start.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
So we have this Tommy Dreamer segment here. He's calling out Crazy Steve. Of course, last week, Crazy Steve attacked the digital media champion, Tommy Dreamer, as he has that upcoming title match courtesy of winning the Feaster Fired briefcase, where he revealed he had the digital media championship shot. And Dreamer calls Steve out. And this is an interesting segment because obviously you can go the normal route where Tommy Dreamer says, hey, you attacked me. Let's start the feud. They reference their history here back, in TNA and teaming with him in the past. And then they turned it personal, which a lot of these Crazy Steve segments have really been personal. There's been a lot of stuff that's been dug up from the past, that separating fact from fiction and what's real and what's not. That's really the interesting part about this, because he's blurring the line of reality where he's eliciting sympathy, but he's also making you hate him because he's he's one of the most disgusting heels we have in the whole roster. But this stuff was great. I mean, it was heavy stuff between Dreamer and Crazy Steve, and it was emotional. And seeing Dreamer being able to cut a great babyface promo is shocking to nobody. This guy's been doing it since the mid-90s. Like, he's able to get out there and get people to react and, borderline cry, because like he's able to find a way to make you feel. And that's what wrestling's about. But of course, we see Crazy Steve stabbing Tommy Dreamer with a goddamn fork by the end of the segment. What an emotional roller coaster, Colton. Your thoughts on this segment?
The roller coaster is the best way to describe it, because Dreamer took me on a ride, man. And he took Steve on a ride too, it seemed like. I mean, Steve's facial expressions, he looked like he was getting emotional. Why Tommy was talking about letting him stay in his hotel room during, his time in TNA, so he could save his money to save his money that he would have to spend on lodging and put that back in his pocket, and teaching him how to drive a car in an empty parking lot. Like, I really thought for a minute they had me hook, line, and sinker. I was like, man, is he coming around? Is Steve going to turn babyface right here? And then the fact that he literally stabbed Tommy Dreamer in the back with a fork and then began to twist it. Man, it was brutal. I love it though. This is the perfect setup, man. But I got to admit, yeah, Steve had me going a little bit. I think I thought that he would maybe just be kind of stoic and not really, biting on anything Tommy was putting out there. But, he was reciprocating, with some nonverbal cues, everything that Dreamer was throwing down. And just to, turn around and stab him in the back like that was pretty brutal, man. And props to Dreamer for selling it. I don't know if he's got some sort of pad back there or what, but that fork looked like it was deep. So if he really stuck it in that back, man, it went in a couple inches.
Yeah, and I think the lack of crowd involvement was something that took away from the segment. Memphis last week, we said the same thing, that there were some parts of the card that they were not getting behind, or they were just quiet, and maybe we're just used to, as you mentioned, Canada, Toronto, Chicago, these other tapings that have a little more meat as far as their ability to react. But yeah, it took a little bit away from this. And again, I'd like to look at the spoilers to see where this fell. Maybe it had something to do with fatigue, that they were taping literally 3 weeks of tapings in 2 nights. So there was a lot of wrestling fit into these cards. But, that's the byproduct of some of the stuff going on with these bulk tapings. And it didn't take that much away from me, but I did notice that there wasn't this initial reaction. The same reaction I had on my couch watching it happen was not the same as those in the arena. They seemed like they were disconnected from what was happening in the ring, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I think some of it, man, I think some of it just might be sheer numbers. I don't know what the gate was at these, but just kind of getting a look at it, and I could see it a little bit more in the fans' revenge match that we saw later in the night. Like, it just doesn't look like they drew as much of a crowd as they did in White Plains, or they did in Chicago, or they did in Toronto.
Yeah, that's probably correct. And there is a lot of steam on this, and I do like that. Eventually, it seems like we're going to get Crazy Steve challenging Tommy Dreamer for the Digital Media Championship at Bound for Glory. And then you can account for every single title has a story behind it. There's every single championship being defended isn't a one-off. And that's hard. It really is, especially Digital Media Championship, where you have the out to just say, it's pretty much a TV title. We'll have an open challenge for it.
Right.
But there's meaningful story here with Tommy Dreamer and Crazy Steve that hasn't even been fully realized yet. There's a lot of stuff going on here that is going to advance in the next couple of weeks. And that has me excited because this is the Digital Media Championship we're talking about. They're putting a lot of heat on this.
And we were talking about this just last week about how do we need another like mid-card title here in Impact, or can we just elevate the Digital Media title? And man, here we are. They're asking, you shall receive, because this is a great way to elevate this title with this type of story.
Yeah, and like I said before, it's so easy to say as a television champion, because that is historically, and everybody would look at it and say, okay, that's what the title's being used for. But the fact that this is being sought after, and you have the built-in story of Feast and Fire, and obviously their history and blurring the line of reality with Crazy Steve actually being legally blind and telling stories, like, very well done. And Tommy Dreamer, a veteran of the game, a guy who knows the business in and out. Some of the more impactful, emotional moments that have happened in wrestling history, especially in ECW, watching him get a crowd to react. Thank you, sir. May I have another with the kendo stick? And Tommy Dreamer continues to do it in 2023. He is a master at the craft. And Crazy Steve, this iteration of his character, we haven't seen the craziest stuff from him yet. And it's gonna be gnarly. Like, I don't know where they're gonna go with this, because they're not done. They are definitely only scratching the surface for where this character's going. You can tell he is all in on this thing. And I think he's probably gonna walk away with the Digital Media Championship and go on a reign of terror for the next couple of months.
Oh, absolutely, man. I don't think there's any way that he doesn't take it off Dreamer. And, given their past and, friendship and relationship in wrestling, I mean, how perfect for Dreamer to be the one to hand it over to him.
And it's so hard to do dark and spooky in wrestling and not just, crowd into someone else's area. It feels like Crazy Steve is approaching territory that's untouched. And that's interesting because wrestling, as I said, featured a lot of dark, eerie, scary, crazy, whatever type of adjective you want to use, characters. And he is doing stuff that is a mix of, maybe Heath Ledger's Joker mixed with some horror movie stuff, mixed with elements of Bray Wyatt. Like, there's so many things in this baked into this one concoction that it might be the first thing, first time we're ever seeing this package, and you can't really compare it to anything else. You only can pull from certain things. And that's hard to do, man. Wrestling's been around for so long, and that type of character is always, sought after from guys. They want to tell a story in the ring. And it seems like Crazy Steve not only has the ability to tell a story, but he also has the leverage on the side of Impact where they're allowing him to go out there and do his damn thing without any shackles on him.
Yeah, and he does have a story to tell. He does come, being a legally blind wrestler is a pretty unique platform, and I'm excited that he's getting the opportunity to tell his story in the way he wants to tell it.
So we'll definitely talk more about that. Obviously, they're going to be building towards that Digital Media Championship. Don't know where they're going to go from stabbing someone with a fork, but it's only going to get crazier. So make sure you guys strap in for the ride. But we led into this, like I mentioned before, this match to determine the 5-way next week to determine the first and 20th entrant. So we had a 5-on-5, 10-person tag match, intergender action. So follow me here, guys. Eric Young, Jordan Grace, Jake Something, Dirty Dango, and Champagne Singh teamed up against Bully Ray, Brian Myers, Mahabali Shira, Jody Threat, and Kylan King. So the winning side of this, which eventually wound up being Eric Young, Jordan Grace, Jake Something, Dirty Dango, and Champagne Singh, are going to face off in a 5-way next week to determine the first and 20th entrants. So essentially how it works is the person winning the match, obviously next week, will be the last entrant, number 20, and the person getting pinned will be number 1. Your thoughts on this? Does it lose a little bit of weight for you? Is it too confusing because they're sitting there trying to explain it to us, or is it just right for you?
I don't know if I want to go as far and say it's too confusing, but I really just don't need it, man. The fact that we have Jake Something and Dirty Dango on a team together, and I know it's just a 10-person tag to figure out who the next match is going to be. I mean, I don't know. The fact that they've had like a mini program and they're on the same team weirds me out a little bit. It just doesn't seem. It seems a little overkill for me for the because the call your shot gauntlet. I understand, that's essentially a Money in the Bank style match without the ladder, or I guess you could even say, the equivalent of the Royal Rumble, except it's more of a battle royale. Everybody's starting in the ring at the same time. So, or no, it's their equivalent of the Royal Rumble. There's entrance first and 20. So I don't think you need this much development to pick who's in this match and who's coming in, man. I'm fine. I know that, you want to do your own thing and you don't want to just rip off what WWE does, but man, I'm fine with people just drawing numbers and that's the way it goes. It's just luck of the draw of who gets first and 20. I mean, it's a little overcomplicated for me, to be honest. I mean, I don't hate it, but I was scratching my head a little bit and I'll say that Hannafin and Raywalt did a great job of breaking it down. They sold it to me once and I was not confused about it at all. But when I first saw the graphic at the top of the show, I was like, hang on, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I agree. And I think like it doesn't have to be that. Like you don't have I understand you're building meaning for the match. And I did have an issue with them being able to coexist because if they really didn't like each other, I understand they have a common goal in mind. They'll eventually be able to get their frustration out the week after. But you have to suspend a little bit of disbelief here, which is, not always good. And like you said, this, whoever wins this gauntlet will earn a future title shot of their choosing and then receive a trophy as an additional reward with the stipulation. And they have 1 year to cash in the title shot. The other thing that makes this different, some other matches and other promotions, is the fact that it's intergender. We got a taste of that here, seeing them be able to mix it up. And Impact does intergender wrestling much better than any other promotion. I truly believe that they have the ability to tell stories like this. Seeing Jordan Grace and Bully Ray go at it was the highlight of the match for me.
Same.
But this was great. It was odd because of the size difference, but kudos to Bully Ray for the ability to be progressive in a time where he's from a different time of wrestling, where he has the ability to see the benefit of someone like Jordan Grace going in there and getting the better of him. A lot of veterans, and I'm saying, maybe today it's kind of washed over everybody that it's not a big deal. But I'm sure there's veterans in the past that would not stand for this. Kudos to Bully Ray for doing this. And like I said, I mean, seeing Jody Threat, Kylan King in there and mixing up, there's a lot of talent in here. And I'm looking forward to next week to see this 5-way with Eric Young, Jordan Grace, Jake Something, Dirty Dango, and Champagne Singh to pay off what's going on with Jake Something and Dirty Dango, because there is some heat there. Seeing them on the same team, as you said before, bothered me. But obviously, I think if you were watching this match, you expected the outcome. Seeing Eric Young on the side of the winning and the victors, he got the biggest pop out of this match, and he's a guy that I early contender to win that match going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Jake Something's the obvious choice, man. Hopefully so.
Yeah, I mean, or Eric Young. I think there's something.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because Eric Young has been put on ice a little bit. I mean, he had that huge return, and right now he's a guy too. I think if you put this title shot on him where you can wait to do, because in my opinion, going back to Eric Young versus Josh Alexander, that's money right there. That was probably match of a lifetime in Impact in recent history. It was the two of them reestablished what it meant to be an Impact main eventer. And I know that might be blasphemy for somebody here, but I think that match between Eric Young and Josh Alexander, to me, brought me back as an Impact fan. I'm like, holy shit, they're fully back.
Yeah.
So I would like to see them revisit that. No rush on it. Obviously, you have to tell the other stories, but Eric Young winning this match, holding onto the briefcase, and then cashing on Alexander, even 8 months from now, 7 months from now, that could be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, also on the same side, like no rush on Jake Something, man. I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
He looks great. He's young, he's killing it, and he's not going anywhere. It doesn't seem like. So yeah, I think there's a lot of story for either one of those guys getting that case.
So we go to this Josh Alexander promo in the back, and Gia Miller was standing by with him. and she was curious why he would face Khan with only a few weeks leading to Bound for Glory, and he was honest with her. He said, I'm pretty much a fighting champion. I want to abide by the rules and iron sharpens iron type of stuff. He's going to go by that babyface playbook where he wants to make sure he's going in fighting the best. And while we're getting a lot from Alex Shelley too, where it seems disingenuous to me, it really does. If you're looking at it on face value, it feels like he's not being honest, but he was saying that he also wants Alex Shelley. I mean, he also wants Josh Alexander at his best. So Alex Shelley wants Josh Alexander as best. Josh Alexander wants to face the best. Both of them are going in there as the babyface 101, shaking hands. We want to face the very best. I feel like there's more to this, though. Alex Shelley has a little bit of an ulterior motive. This reminds me, and I'm recovering in shot nostalgia, seeing Randy Savage want to be the guy to beat Ricky Steamboat for that IC title. And time passes, and eventually Ricky Steamboat loses the title to Honky Tonk Man. Randy Savage loses his obsession. But there was a time where Randy Savage was interfering in other people's matches because he didn't want anybody else to beat Ricky Steamboat. And that's what it feels like with Alex Shelley here, where Alex Shelley is on paper doing the right thing, trying to defend Josh Alexander and keep him healthy, but it's for selfish intentions because he wants to beat Alexander's very best. So there's no denying at any point that he isn't as good.
Yeah, and I 100% echo what you're saying there, man. And it's not the best look on Shelley, man. But I think because he's made it very clear over the last few weeks that he wants no one to think that he's a I think the term transitional champion's out of our vocabulary at this point because
he's had so many
He's had so many successful defenses, but I think he still has, like you said, man, he still has that chip on his shoulder of being in the same conversation and being of the same caliber as Josh Alexander. So yeah, he's not a transitional champion, but Josh is still, he was the guy, he was the company's guy that never lost it. And Shelley, it's almost seems like Shelley's projecting his own insecurities onto the situation and onto Josh Alexander. Because I don't think anybody out there, I mean, at least me as a fan, I'm not sitting here being like, no, Shelley's not on his level. I think this is going to be a great match. But it doesn't seem like he can get that idea out of his head that, maybe Shelley's not sure if he's on his level exactly. Or he's, just obsessed with the fact that there's some people online that might say that he's not. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's definitely ulterior motives. He can run his mouth all he wants about how he wants him at his best, but it's all to serve his own ego, I think.
And as we sit here thinking about the card for Bound for Glory, and of course we're not going to make our predictions now, I could see us going back and forth for the next couple of weeks and figuring out who's going over on a lot of these matches, because there's a lot of this, this story that is so complex, because we've been saying there's a lot to be determined here. Obviously, Josh Alexander, Alex Shelley being put both in glass cases, looking at the reasons that either one of them should go over and be the champion. Seems obvious to me that, of course, if this was a different person, this wasn't the legacy of Alex Shelley, this wasn't someone who, a lot of the feud is based on the fact that he wants to establish himself, and it will be opinion based. But if he doesn't beat Josh Alexander, then what was the title reign for? In a lot of casual fans' eyes, if they look at it and say, if he can't beat Josh Alexander, was he just keeping it warm for him? So are they worried about it making it like that? Do they want Josh Alexander to lose once and then win it back? There's no guarantee here. And wrestling, a lot of times when we're watching these events, feels predictable. And the predictable thing for me, I feel like 78% feels like Josh Alexander has to go in and win. But there's that nagging thought in the back of my head of maybe they don't. Maybe they want us to chase. Maybe they want to put off the moment for Alexander because it's always going to be there. Then again, you also sit and have the conversation. What would be the benefit of Alexander losing unless Shelley goes full-blown heel and screws him out of the title?
Man, yeah, that could be incredible. I would like to see, because I feel like we've been getting these breadcrumbs of, heel tendencies, seeping out of Alex Shelley. And, I can see it going either way, man. Like I said, I think we're going to go back and forth on more than one of these championship matches leading into the next couple of weeks. But I could see the fact that it's Bound for Glory is what bumps me over into that.
I'm picturing the final moment, what's
Yeah.
happening. Like I really can't see them not pulling the trigger on Alexander, but stranger things have happened.
Right. But yeah, I think that's what's pushing me into the same percentage where you are, like in that 75 to 80% sure, like it's going to be Alexander. But I mean, at the same time, you could have Alexander lose. This could be more than one chapter for these guys. You could have Shelley retain it. You could have Alexander get another shot at it, win it, and then you have the contractual obligated rematch with Shelley, which is the rubber match, and then Alexander definitively beats him again, and then that's the end of the story. I could see him doing it that as well. I mean, it's gonna be a good program regardless, but I don't know. I kind of got my heart set on Josh Alexander getting his championship back at the biggest show of the year, man.
Yeah, and there's also we'll talk about it because the segment's coming up. The other looming threat is Moose. Like Moose is out there as well, and Moose has a history with both guys, but more predominantly with Josh Alexander, and we know their history is well documented. And of course, we'll talk about it. But man, the top of the card is stacked, but also the layered story. You could pull any card from under the deck and put it on top and figure out where to go from there, and it would probably make sense because all these guys are interconnected.
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. And Moose Josh Alexander program is one of my favorites in recent memory.
So we also have a uncrowned champion, someone who didn't lose their championship. We get a video package with Mickie James and Trinity, which leads into this Trinity promo hyping her match with Mickie. This is pretty standard stuff. There's nothing revolutionary here. She's just pretty much talking about she saw Mickie eyeing her title. This is again, similar to what's happening with Shelley and Alexander on paper. Two baby faces going at it for the love of the game, for the glory of the championship. But similar to Shelley, feels like Mickie James has some, ulterior motives. It feels like Trinity's going in there with the best intentions, but Mickie James, even though on the surface she's saying that she was happy for Trinity, I feel like the challenger in this case, is the difference from the men's world title, is going in with a little chip on her shoulder of wanting to do whatever it takes to knock Trinity out from the top of the mountain.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This one, I'm going back and forth on this one even more. I could see this going either way, man. Because it's no secret that Trinity and Mickie James are friends, and there's a lot of mutual respect there. I could see them putting the belt back on Mickie for another run, but I could also see this being an extension of a coronation for Trinity by getting a win over a legend like Mickie James. So yeah, this one's gonna be hard to call.
So not that it should affect the booking decisions, because I think they all should make sense sequentially in their own way, but say both uncrowned champions go in and win their titles back. Does that remove any of the significance on the moments for you, or are they both just completely separate? Like what I'm saying is if Mickie James was to beat Trinity, get her title back, and then Josh was to beat Alex Shelley and get his title back, is that just resetting the deck of cards, or is it something that they probably should wait to do one or the other?
No, I don't think it's resetting the deck of cards at all. I mean, I feel like if I'm just a betting man trying to predict the move that they're going to do, I feel like one or the other is probably what'll end up happening. But I'd be totally fine with both, champions who never lost the belts getting them back, because that's not the last chapter in both of these feuds, because Impact is very, very good and very strict about doing contractually obligated rematches. So if Mickie gets the belt off Trinity, Trinity's going to get another shot. Same story for Shelley. I don't think it's a bad move at all, mainly just because it's Mickie James and because it's Josh Alexander, because they are such great athletes and they have so much prestige in the company that, I don't think it's just a continuation of them picking up where they left off. They've had enough time off to where, this would be a new chapter and another reign for them in my eyes.
Yeah, this is an important decision for Impact Creative, and I think they will make the right decision ultimately, and I think we've seen them have a steady hand when it comes to these tough decisions. So this is one of those tough decisions where the fallout, good or bad, is going to come out of this match where the creative has to make sense following it. And then maybe they feel like Trinity is better chasing the title. Maybe they feel like cementing her with a feud with Mickie James would be better if she beats Mickie James for it instead of beating, she beat Deonna Purrazzo for it. Maybe beating Mickie James in pursuit of the title is better than defending successfully against her. Who knows? But That's for them to make in the Impact press room to make all those hard hitting decisions. But that's what makes them so good right now, because like I said, they're consistent. The stories make sense. And I'm confident coming out of this that there's going to be still more story to be told, but I still think that this is going to put a end of a chapter kind of thing and a season finale where we're going to move on and look forward to what's next for Impact. Because Bound for Glory, like we said, week after week, this is their biggest show of the year. I think it has to have some finale aspect to it. There has to be some level of, all right, we finished that story. Let's move on to something different.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's gotta be a definitive page turn scenario.
So we move into the Fans Revenge Country ass whooping lumberjack strap match between ABC Chris Bay and Ace Austin against John Schuyler, and his mystery partner wound up being Jay Vidal. Some Mid-South history of this match. They referenced Jerry Jarrett. They referenced the Von Erichs. Main thing is fan involvement. And a lot of the stuff we talk about throughout history of wrestling is getting people in the door, and nothing got people in the door in Memphis or Texas or Dallas, wherever otherwise, is getting them involved, whether they get to see someone's head get shaved, whether they get to get their money back by whatever involvement in the match, or being able to whip one of the talent. And for the most part, I would probably say a lot of these guys are local to the Memphis area wrestlers, but from reading what I read, some people are actually shoot fans. So they've been doing this type of match since the mid-2000s Impact Wrestling. This isn't the first time they've done a fan revenge match. So some of the people here probably were shoot guys that are just prepared. And you could tell, make sure that the heels are turned with their back. Do not whip them in the face. You can tell they're very cognizant of that. This is a lot of fun, man. I had a good time watching this match. Lumberjack matches leave a lot to be desired sometimes. I know we covered one on Shot Nostalgia. I think you were on the episode with us where we discussed all the different characters at ringside that added to it, a lot of star power. But lumberjack matches, when done right, are fun. And this played their role, getting Jay Vidal and John Schuyler not able to escape and have to go back in the ring. And that was the whole concept. And it was fun. And watching Chris Bay and Ace Austin play with them was awesome.
Yeah, this was a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be, man. And I got to say, that one brother in the Brian Myers shirt just whacked the shit out of John Schuyler, man. That first one, I mean, it was like first 20 seconds of the match when he got out there. I mean, he really got a hold of him. And, you know, I really enjoyed earlier in the night, they showed the segment of the referee, like when they were getting ready to go to the commercial, the referee was talking. He had the strap and he was going over things with the fans. So I thought that was a really cool kind of, you know, clip to include to show that, okay, yeah, these guys aren't all just local talent plants. Like I'm going over safety rules and telling people how it's going to work. I mean, he's also probably telling the locals like, hey, you know, when ABC gets out there, don't whip them, take selfies with them, make them look, make them look like rock stars, which they are. But it's I like this match a lot, man. And it looked like Jay Vidal caught one to the ear at one point, which I'm sure was horribly painful, man. But yeah, this was fun. This layer of physical violence definitely spices up a lumberjack match. You know, usually you just roughing somebody up and throwing them back of the ring, but the fact that you're smacking a shit out of them with a leather strap and putting some literal heat on that hide to get them back in the ring is a nice touch.
Yeah, like I said, the lumberjack concept has been in a lot of ways exposed, but when it's done in a unique way, which the Fans Revenge thing is unique, it adds some layer of thing to it. And to me, watching Chris Bay and Ace Austin get their comeuppance on it would have been nice if it was Jason Hotch and John Schuyler. If obviously Jason Hotch is on paternity leave, so congrats to his family again. But the good hands, to me, I mean, maybe it's better, you know, the fact that they didn't have to job out in this match, but doesn't matter. Like, I feel like the good hands right now are just, they're serviceable in the ring. They are more than competent as far as putting on great matches with people. They have yet to emphasize them at all, put any significance on their characters. You know, we've seen blips of them being taken seriously. This is not the case here, obviously. But the right team won. They got to build them up for Bound for Glory, because we'll talk about that segment later. They're getting ready for cashing in their match against the Rascals, which everybody knew. It's your best tag team feud of the year at your biggest event of the year. You know, ABC goes over, and that's another interesting thing, man. The tag division is so stacked, and Chris Bay and Ace Austin feel like they had such a great run with the titles, lost them to Subculture, and then all of a sudden now the Rascals have, and ABC has to get them back. There's a lot to be said about the depth at the top of the tag division, and this was an example of just heating them up against a team that obviously was there to do the job.
Yeah, and it's I like that we took a while to get ABC back in the title picture. Be interesting to see how this one goes down. This is going to be another one that's going to be hard for me to call because I like what the Rascals are doing with it, man. I mean, I could see it going back on ABC, but ABC had it. They had a hell of a run, man. It was like just shy of 200 days, and I feel like the Rascals are really just kind of getting started.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, the thing is with both of these teams, you could heat any of the other side of them up and have them go for singles titles too. So like
Right.
that's the other crazy thing we were looking at here is as rich as these tag divisions are, they're filled with talented guys that could be top of the card in any division, which is we're watching emphasis be put on the digital media championship. We're watching emphasis be put on the X division championship, obviously. And some of these guys have been former holders of the titles themselves. And like, that's the other awesome part about these divisions. As I said, not sacrificing this roster because it's so carefully constructed, almost made in a lab, perfectly put in with ingredients to make one of the best rosters in all of wrestling right now. Everyone talks about AEW obviously being the most rich with talent and the amount of 5-star caliber matches that could be had by tossing any two guys in the ring. But as far as carefully constructed, everybody knowing their role and being able to be emphasized on a consistent basis, no one does it better than Impact. And this was quite clear here. ABC and, little rant here, but yeah, ABC being featured in a big way here.
Absolutely.
So we had the recap of Frankie Kazarian and Eddie Edwards feud, talking about everything down the line. Seems like we're going to get the 2 out of 3 falls match next week between Frankie Kazarian and Eddie Edwards. Maybe this will be the finale of the feud. I know that they taped one of these matches, the 2 out of 3 falls match, and we didn't see it in Memphis. So I'm assuming it's next week because they're not going to make this go 4 weeks. It's going to be 3 weeks of Memphis tapings.
Yeah. Last week I was saying maybe we'll get a cage match to pay this off. And there's no cage match, but 2 out of 3 falls we'll have to do. I hope it's next week. I'm ready to, like I
would
said,
imagine it has to be because if they taped it in Memphis, there's no way it's 4 weeks of TV.
Well, when I say I hope it's next week, I hope this is it. I hope this is the end. Yeah. I hope this is the end of the feud. No disrespect to Kaz or Eddie Edwards. I love both of these guys, but I've seen what I need to see of this one, and I'm happy to see these guys go their separate ways and do different things. I think I'd like to see a Frankie Kazarian Jake something match. I think that'd be great. I'm hoping this, and I'm sure it's going to be a hell of a 2 out of 3 falls match. But I mean, a 2 out of 3 falls, man, I feel like that's hard not to be the main event just for time wise, unless you're going to have a couple of really quick falls. Maybe this is going to be the main event next week. We'll see.
Yeah, 2 out of 3 falls matches leave definitely a lot of time, but going back again, shout out to Shot Nostalgia, airing tomorrow night. You guys can check it out. Every tag team title match was defended in 2 out of 3 falls, and some of the matches went like 8 minutes. I'm not saying they're going to do that here, but you could fit it in if it made sense. But we go into this match, and I referenced we're going to talk about Moose, and we'll definitely talk about the connection with Josh Alexander in a second. He came out with Brian Myers, taking on Bhupinder Gujjar, and this was a emphasis match. Get Moose heated up, show everybody what he can do. After the match is where the story came into play. Obviously, Steve Macklin came out. He said the briefcase for the Impact World Championship is his. Give it to him. Moose got in his face saying, like, dude, you can't be this stupid. I'm not giving it back to you. Lights go out. We get PCO. So PCO is no longer with the company. Like, I think we talked about it last. We get Langton less. He's going to be on a handshake deal. His contract ran out. Memphis tapings were his farewell. And same thing, we're going to talk about Sami Callihan, who makes an appearance here. But then we also had PCO doing his thing. And then randomly, Rhino comes out and gores Macklin. So it seems like we're going to be getting Steve Macklin versus Rhino at Bound for Glory. Moose is somewhere out in the ether. I'm sure we were going to get some match with him. He's still holding on to that title shot for dear life, and he's waiting in the wings for eventually, we'd imagine, Josh Alexander, right? Because that's a legacy feud here in Impact.
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, one of the best feuds in professional wrestling in the last 2 or 3 years, hands down, across any promotion, in my opinion. But yeah, a whole lot going on here towards the end of the match. I'm excited about Macklin versus Rhino. I think there's a lot there. It's just a good old fashioned grudge match, and yeah, that's gonna be something good to see. And I wouldn't be surprised if PCO is on a handshake deal, man. I could see him coming in, coming out. I know negotiations were kind of stiff there and they didn't come to an agreement, but if this is the last that we see him, kind of a weird farewell, but I'm sure it won't be the last we ever see of an Impact.
So to build the history too, and I'll let you speak a little bit more closely on this Moose and Josh Alexander stuff. If you guys remember, and history may repeat itself somewhere down the line, at Bound for Glory on October 23rd, I believe this was 2021 or 2020, Josh Alexander defeated Christian Cage to win the Impact World Championship. And while he was celebrating with his family, he lost the title to Moose, who cashed in his Collier Shot Gauntlet trophy. At Turning Point, we had Josh Alexander calling out Moose, but was instead attacked by the debuting Jonah. At Hard to Kill, Josh Alexander defeated Jonah after they were feuding for a couple of weeks. And then Alexander announced his contract with Impact Wrestling US work visa had expired, and an angle was done to write him off TV, where he was sent home by President Scott D'Amore. This leads us to March at Sacrifice, where Alexander made his return. He attacked Moose after his match with Heath. Alexander revealed that he signed a new multi-year deal, which eventually paid off at Rebellion, where we got the start of Josh Alexander's historic title reign by beating Moose. And he became champion for a second time. So that story is waiting to be told, tapped into. There is a rich history waiting to be told. Again, once you're light the fuse, it's ready to blow up.
Yeah, this is, and you were correct. It was 2021. Man, I was actually at the Sacrifice show that was here in Louisville. It was an awesome time. This was an incredible feud, man. And Moose is an incredible talent. He is, in my opinion, at this point, Mr. Impact. He's been signed to the longest deal in the company's history. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence by any means that he got the world title shot in the Feast or Fired match, because what a perfect first long-term story to go against Josh Alexander. Let's heat this right back up.
So if we go back to the Collier Shot Gauntlet match that's happening at Bound for Glory, obviously on the winning side of the teams, there's still going to be other people filling in the other gaps of time. Obviously, there's 20 entrants, right, of that Collier Shot Gauntlet.
Mm-hmm.
So Eric Young, Jake Something, two favorites of that. So say we do the math, Eric Young wins that Collier Shot Gauntlet. Could he cash in that same night?
I guess he could, but it's good for a full year, is my understanding.
Same thing as Money in the Bank, correct?
Exactly. Yes. I mean, he could cash in that night, or it could be 6 months down the road, could be 8 months down the road. Who knows? So yeah, I mean, to my knowledge, he could cash in that night.
So, which is amazing to me if you think about setting up really these different landmarks in a title reign, having Moose up and waiting at any given point, Eric Young waiting at any given point, and then you have Josh Alexander as the champion, move him on the chessboard. God damn, dude. Like, does any other company have a main event that could rival that as far as stories that make sense? Of course, AEW, as we reference, has a level of talent that's not to be compared with. But there's not a lot that you can say that there's a lot of guys lined up for a program before a guy even wins the title. I can't imagine, say, Adam Cole wins the title from MJF somewhere down the line. We all believe that's the payoff of this MJF feud, whether it be 2-3 months from now or 4 months from now. Who's lining up to take on Adam Cole aside from MJF, who is going to be feuding with him still? It would be, we don't know. It'd have to be laid out. With Josh Alexander, there's 4 or 5 opponents that are ready-made and in a package for you, waiting on the table for you.
And 2 of them that are going to have guaranteed contracts. So you've got a target on your back, 2 targets, moving targets on your back as soon as you pick the strap back up.
Crazy. So we look forward to that. I'm very excited to hear everything that goes down the line after Bound for Glory. But speaking of Bound for Glory, you have the Rascals and ABC segment in the back. We have, of course, Santino Marella back there to sanction. The Rascals and ABC are now official for Bound for Glory. But of course, Sami Callihan and Rich Swann walk up. They say, dude, we have a right at getting in here. We do have a win over ABC. So they now will get a title shot against the Rascals. So the Rascals will wrestle Sami and Rich Swann next week for the titles. I'm sorry, Sami and Rich Swann beat Subculture, the former champions. That's how they get a right to a title shot here. So now the Rascals will wrestle Sami Callihan and Rich Swann next week for the tag titles. We get a tag title match next week, and the winner of that match will face ABC at Bound for Glory, which we'd imagine is going to be ABC. So especially with Sami Callihan's contract status, all that stuff. But cool to see a tag team title match on Impact on Access next week.
Absolutely, man. And I'm excited that it's going to be Sami and Rich Swann, because I love that team. I had a lot of fun with them during the the qualifier to get up to the match with Subculture, and it was great. I really enjoyed their work as a team, and if this is the last time we're going to see them team together in Impact, I'm glad we're getting to see it one more time.
So we get a Chris Sabin promo about Kenta, talking some great mic work by Chris Sabin here, talking about Kenta and building up this match Bound for Glory, a dream match by all counts, and we have seems to be a lot of dream matches here on this card, and leads us into someone else getting ready for their big match at Bound for Glory. Josh Alexander taking on Big Bad Khan. Of course, Diener is in Khan's corner, but Alex Shelley is at ringside on the commentary table, which he didn't do a bad job, man. He's not a commentator by any means. He's not a guy known for his mic work, but he was able to hold his own out there. And we just saw John Moxley come out with a news story that said commentary is not as easy as you think it is. Alex Shelley did a really good job here.
Yeah, I thought so too, man. I actually really enjoyed it. I would like to see him ringside on the call with Hannafin and Raywalt a little more often.
Yeah, so this match itself was paint by numbers. You expected it to be what it was. It was a good way to get Josh Alexander iron sharpens iron type of stuff, get him strengthened up for the big pay-per-view push. Khan, who's a guy he was pretty protected going into the initial feud with Eric Young. He's starting to be used as big man fodder for these, fed to upper tier main eventers, which isn't a bad spot to be in the card. You need size to help emphasize the main eventers or to be world champions. But this was a good way to get Josh Alexander out there and also continue to tell the story of having Alex Shelley, having Alexander's back, selfish reasons to keep Alexander healthy. And then it told the story here, obviously, with Diener in the corner, keeping Alexander from getting attacked by any of the designs. So this was well told.
Yeah, I thought so too. And I mean, I'm pretty sure this is only Khan's second singles loss. So, man, he's still coming out looking strong, man. I mean, even with taking a loss here to Alexander, held his own and getting a nice shine off Alexander too, continuing to keep Khan as a kind of a established threat in the singles.
Every promotion has this difficult time with keeping those big guys that are not the world champions. They're almost the heaters for being built up, and everyone that plays that role, we've seen Kane play that role in the past. Big Show's played that role. Now in AEW, we had guys like Lance Archer, Luchasaurus plays that role. On the build up to these cards, Brian Cage sometimes is that guy. It's hard to keep them realistically and consistently hot because they're losing a lot. And Khan, like you said, hasn't lost a lot, but it feels like he's going to be on the losing side of things going forward. But as a person watching, of course, he looks like he has the advantage. And I think that's as the factor is watching these matches and understanding the dynamic of being built up. It's admirable that Josh Alexander would want to take a match against a guy with the sheer size of Khan going into Bound for Glory. So there's something to be said about this match. And also Khan gets a lot out of this as well, because as you mentioned, he held his own with Josh Alexander, who's the walking weapon. He's the uncrowned champion, and he took it to him. There were some near falls in this match. Of course, no one really believed he was going to win, but you could suspend belief that if this was a sporting contest, he had him there,
Absolutely.
So that was our end here. Of course, Josh Alexander and Alex Shelley went face to face in the ring. We're going to get more of this going forward. Next week, we're going to be definitely covering the third of what's going on here in Memphis. I thought it would only be 2 weeks, but it's going to be 3. There's no word on where it's going to be taped next. We've only had the word on the Chicago tapings. So any word on your end? Do you know where they'll be taping in the next couple of weeks? Because I haven't heard anything.
I haven't heard either. I imagine they're probably going back to home base and probably going back to Nashville.
I would imagine so. I guess the sequential time would take place there, and getting ready. I have to check. Even on the Impact site, the only thing listed is obviously Bound for Glory tickets and the Fallout tickets. So curious to see where those tapings are. Maybe those are already settled of who's going, but yeah, we still have a few more weeks to go. So I think we have at least one more set of tapings before they get to Chicago and, tell their stories at Bound for Glory and the Fallout. But with that being said, let's get to Impactful Moment, talk about our favorite moment of Impact on Access from this week.
Impactful.
All right, Impactful Moment of the Week. Colton, I let you lead here. Your match or moment of the week that left you most excited about Bound for Glory?
Oh, man, that's a tough one. I think I'm going to pick a moment that's not officially tied to Bound for Glory yet this week. I'm going to go with the Dreamer Crazy Steve promo, and I really enjoyed that tonight. It went a lot deeper than I thought it was going to. I love seeing that side of Tommy Dreamer and just continuing to build. Like you said, man, we're just scratching the surface with this iteration of Crazy Steve, and I'm excited for it, and excited for the continued elevation of the Digital Media Championship.
I agree. And as I was looking at these, it's usually easy to have a work rate match to pull on, but I feel like we didn't have that this week. It was weird. As you mentioned, it was a little bit of a lighter week as far as Impact story progression goes. There's definitely nuggets of things you had to watch to make sure you're following along. But as far as like a guaranteed main event level match, there wasn't that on this card. But I'm going to go with the Fans Revenge Country Ass Whooping Lumberjack strap match. That was fun. It's Pro Wrestling 101 being in Memphis. The Mid-South Mayhem concept was cool. And ABC getting the win, being heated up and getting ready for the Rascals in a main event caliber tag team match. What else can you ask for? I'd like to see tag team titles being featured that way. I do love your Crazy Steve choice. I thought that was awesome. And seeing the Digital Media Championship be put on a pedestal and be sought after by a guy like Crazy Steve, even though he picked the briefcase up, it kind of picked his destiny for him. It is really cool to see. And I think it's only going to elevate that title.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And I'm such a big Tommy Dreamer fan, and just any chance I can get to get more of him on my TV, I'm always going to take it.
So let's get to shock and awe. We're going to do the final wrap up. We're going to preview next week. We're going to do some shilling. We're going to get out of here and get our weekend started in only a few short hours. Let's get to shock and awe.
Shock and awe.
All right, shock and awe, our final wrap up. Next week's show will be on October 12th for the weekly TV show on Impact. We'll be talking about the third portion of the Mid-South Mayhem tapings. I'll give all the latest news in Impact, tying in some Impact history. What other Impact star is talking about CM Punk? That's being asked about on some podcast or interview. A lot of good stuff coming up down the pike. As we mentioned, Bound for Glory is being built towards. We have a lot of stuff in Impact Wrestling. I know everyone's talking about the debut of Adam Copeland, and why not? It's a good time to be a wrestling fan, but don't sleep on Impact Wrestling. We continue to cover what has been consistent stuff with awesome matches, awesome programs, and a lot of stuff to look forward to throughout not only the lead to Bound for Glory, but after that, man, the winter's going to be fun here too.
Oh, absolutely, man. I'm excited about turning the page. Like you said, Bound for Glory is definitely going to feel like we are closing one chapter and beginning another with Impact Wrestling in a lot of ways. And it's been a great ride, and I'm really excited for the payoff.
So as far as shilling goes, I'll let you get started here. Give some shilling for @mullet.mania. What's going on in the debate? I know you guys had an awesome guest on the other day.
Yeah, mullet.mania on Instagram. Give me a follow. You can keep up with everything going on with me there on Instagram. Debate show, man. So this week, I'm not on it this week, but I'll be on it the following week. Really incredible guest this week, Hal Haney, or @Hal Haney Art on Instagram.
I got some art right on the wall. Two pieces over here.
here's a Hal Haney original right here, a Hal Haney original down here. I got another one right behind me. Huge Hal Haney fan. My wife gets me a print of Hal's at least once a year for either my birthday or Christmas. So just thrilled to have him come be on the show and just come visit us at the tavern. The guy's awesome, and I can't wait to hear the episode. I was talking to Chad about it yesterday, and apparently it was super fun. He had a blast. He wants to come back. He had an incredible question, which I just didn't fall on the schedule for me to be on the show that week. But his question was, who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling mullets?
Whoa!
So man, I told Chad, I was like, I'm as the resident mullet maniac at the tavern, I'm gonna send you my Mount Rushmore for you guys to share on the show.
Well, not to put you on the spot, do you have a top 2, top 3 that you have in your mind right now?
Oh, I've got a top 4. I thought hard about it, but it's easily. So we've got Jake Roberts, Razor Ramon, Magnum TA, and Jimmy Hart.
Ooh, Jimmy Hart. I mean, he's still rocking that mullet today.
Dude, it looks the exact same that it did 15 years ago.
Jimmy Hart was at a local independent at Outlaw Wrestling, and they had a picture of him, and he wears the sunglasses, so that does hide age, but the dude looks, from far away at least, he looks like he's the same age as he was in the 80s.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the guy takes relatively good care of himself, and yeah, I mean, he's looking awesome. I was wondering if Jimmy Hart would be on anybody else's list, because he's not the first. I think a lot of people think of in-ring talent as far as the mullet goes, and then as far as those 4, man, if I had to pick a favorite I don't know. I think Magnum TA is probably going to be the strongest for me. I got to throw his up there as well. But there were some honorable mentions that didn't make the list. One of them being, his name escapes me right off the top of my head right now, but the referee from Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
I'll get it for you while you're talking.
Yeah, man, that guy's mullet. I almost, if there was a fifth spot on Rushmore, I was going to put him on there just as a deep cut, because that was one of my first notes that we had when we first started covering Smoky Mountain '94. I was like, oh my gosh, this ref's got just one of the best mullets in the game, man.
It's Brian Hildebrand.
That's right, man. Yeah, rest in peace, guy. I think he passed away from colon cancer at a pretty young age, but he was
in WCW as well.
Yeah, very well respected guy in the pro wrestling community, and just fucking excellent hair, man.
An underrated mullet of current day is, I believe he's in MLW, but he also wrestles at Rad Pro. He also is at Beyond Limitless, all those places. Love Doug. He actually plays a character called Cro-Magna TA at Rad Pro Wrestling, so it's a take on Magnum TA.
Right on.
His name is Love Doug. It's like a Cupid Valentine's Day gimmick he has. It's really awesome. So look him up. Love Doug. Great independent wrestler as well.
Absolutely.
And also mullet.
Yeah, and then also, shout out to current mullets, man. Speedball Mike Bailey's got a great mullet.
He does have a good mullet.
It's just getting better. So.
Hell yeah, shout out to them. And also shilling on here, make sure you guys go to the turnbuckletavern.com for all your tavern needs. Make sure you guys check out everything we're doing here. Instagram's popping off. As Colt mentioned, you guys can get our audio drops for all the different shows we do on Spotify, Apple, wherever you guys are getting. And I heard the term the other day. I think it was, Colt, coming down the aisle with J-Bone was talking about, they had a guest on, but they referenced all the audio drops as RSS feeds. So check out our RSS feeds. That's the technical terms, dropping the lingo. But the best way that you can support us is by listening to us, leaving a review, maybe buying a t-shirt, telling a friend about us. I think that's been the biggest thing, is if you have a friend that likes wrestling and they have a friend that likes wrestling, and it's this chain effect where everyone's talking to each other and this building a community of like-minded fans, or maybe not so like-minded fans, having a discussion about pro wrestling and creating a space for everybody to have discourse that's respectful, but also passionate. And I think that's where that line continues to be towed. And I love it, man. Seeing a lot of the passionate wrestling fans come out of the woodwork, good, for positive or negative stuff. And personally, I think we're living in a golden age. I think Marco said it best. He posted something, tagged a whole bunch of the Pod Foundation fam on it, and talked about, we should just appreciate where we're at, because wrestling's in such a good spot right now. As far as, it's hard to see the forest for the trees, like we're in it right now. But I think years from now, we're going to look at this time period from wherever it began and wherever it ended as a peak apex of the professional wrestling industry that is going to be lauded after. Like, you were there when, you were a fan when. This is crazy that wrestling is as popular as it is in this year that it is. And, lucky enough, we're getting here to witness all the stuff and cover it live week to week.
It's a great time to be a wrestling fan, man.
So make sure you guys also go to remarkablewrestling.com for all ticket events. We have a lot of events coming up. Of course, you guys see some of the social media stuff. Halloween Haunted Havoc is going to be on October 27th from the Remarkable Wrestling School in Wisconsin. Only 80 tickets. So if you guys are interested in coming, don't wait to buy your tickets. $20 for general admission, $25 for front row tickets. Some of the matches are going to be announced soon. We spent Tuesday night recording some vignettes, spin the wheel, make the goddamn deal, picking up some match, figuring out opponents, figuring out match stipulations. So by the sound of my voice, hopefully you guys have seen that by now. We have the match between Desmond Cole and Dominic De Niro for the Remarkable Wrestling Championship. What's going to be the stipulation? The wheel will decide the fate. So some opponents will be decided, as I mentioned, some stipulations. We don't know what's going to happen. Spin the wheel, make the goddamn deal. And it's a lot of fun. So if you're looking to buy tickets, remarkablewrestling.com. And like we mentioned before, Youth of the Nation is an event coming up. It's a free event. If you're in the Worcester, Massachusetts area, December 28th, right before Wrestling Open at the White Eagle, we're going to be making our on-the-road debut. So Remarkable Wrestling coming to a town near for Restival. So Restival is a 5-day long day festival where all the best promotions in the Northeast area are getting together to put on wrestling shows. And we're just lucky to be a part of it. So we're going to be putting on some great matches there. Like I said, I think it's 3:30 p.m. is doors and 4 o'clock is when the first match starts on Thursday, December 28th. And that's called Youth of the Nation. So all the information is at remarkablewrestling.com, at remarkable_wrestling, or follow me at Acefield Retro. Do all that anyway. So make sure you guys do that stuff. And, support us in any way you can. Support independent wrestling. I think Swerve Strickland said it during the media scrum best. go out and find the future stars. You guys are in control of it. Go out to your local independents, wherever you live. By the sound of my voice, go find them, support them, bring light to their talent, and get them contracts and bring them to TV. That's the way we continue to grow wrestling and continue to plant the trees plant the seeds or trees sometimes we won't sit under. But that's a beautiful part about being a wrestling fan.
Hell yeah, man. And yeah, y'all keep following Acefield Retro. He's got some very sweet shirts coming out very soon, designed from Extra Cooler. Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to getting those your voice by choice, getting one of those on my back here soon.
Oh, it's coming your way. You're an XL, you're double XL guy?
Give me a double X. I can usually do either one, but the holidays are coming up. Let me get a little room in there.
Hell yeah, all that Halloween candy, got to leave some room. But
that's right. Thanksgiving, Christmas dinners, all that good stuff.
So if you guys are interested in that shirt, thank you for mentioning that. You guys can hit me up at Acefield Retro. Extra Cooler was nice enough to make that design for me. It's pinned on my page. If you're interested in buying a shirt, $20. If you see me in person at one of the Remarkable Wrestling shows, you see me at VPW. I'm coming up October 14th. I'll be at Hollow Ground, just doing the media table, giving some stuff out, selling some cards, and hopefully I have the shirts in hand by then. And you guys can get a shirt, $20, and you guys can rock it, support it, and bring some eyes to what we're doing over here as Tavern, Acefield Retro, whatever we're doing towards positive wrestling influence and continue to bring light to what we love as a craft, because wrestling is amazing. But Colton, any last words, or we're going to say goodbye for the night?
Man, I think that's all we got. You guys go, if you haven't left us a review, go leave us a review. Apple, Spotify, do both. If you've ever listened to the show, even if you only listen 2 or 3 times, man, reviews go a long way in the algorithm. They pop us up to the top in the wrestling content world on Apple and Spotify. So leave us a review, screenshot it, send it to the Tavern Instagram. Ace will send you some stickers, man. Come on, help us out.
Check out Shad Nostalgia tomorrow. Check out Wrestling Tonight on Monday. Check out the flagship from yesterday. At this point, what time is it? But all good stuff. Support Turnbuckle Tavern. We'll catch you guys next week after a while.